Hello everyone, I'm Aydoğan Vatandaş, the editor-in-chief of Politurco.com. Today I have Dr. Ömer Atilla Ergi in my podcast. Dr. Ergi, welcome to my show, sir.
Hello, how are you, Aydoğan?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Ergi, today I want to ask questions about the Zul Qarnain in Quran and his journeys mentioned in Quran, because for centuries the people asked who Zul Qarnain was and what kind of trips he had mentioned in the Quran. And as far as I understand, in our previous programs, you started to suggest that Zul Qarnain might have had these journeys in the space, not in its earth. So when we make this analysis also reminds us several incidents mentioned in the Quran might also have happened in the space, and there is a species mentioned in this surah in Quran, which is known as Yejuj and Mejuj, and these are also known Gog and Magog, Hagog and Magog in the Gospels and also the Old Testament. Might also be aliens in origin. So on the other hand, we have been witnessing UFO phenomena. And almost every day we started to see new developments in this issue. And the United States government, along with the other governments, are taking this topic very seriously. For example, last month, United States Congress just issued a new act, a new bill, and they want the Pentagon, the military organization, should be very careful about this and take it very seriously and clarify what has been happening since 1947, since the Roosevelt incident. So they don't want any cover-up anymore, and they want the public to know about this phenomena. Is it an enemy? Are they friendly? What do they want? What do they want from us, and why are they here? So today I want to ask first, I want to start with the Zul Qarnain story in Quran and how you make this analysis that Zul Qarnain might have traveled in the space, and the species that he encountered in the space might be those beings, Yejuj and Mejuj.
Well, I should say this first. As we advance in science and technology, we realize that there are some, realities in the Quran we are just discovering. It's very interesting. There are stories of many amazing individuals in the Holy Quran. For example, individuals like Khidr, who I believe to be a time traveler. One of the Prophet Suleiman's wise men, he was a normal human being. He wasn't a prophet, who had the technology to teleport an object from 3,000 kilometers away within the blink of an eye, for example. Quran mentions this. There is also the story of the seven sleepers, seven men who were put to sleep for 309 years while their bodies were preserved. But as you said, we are going to talk about mainly Zul Qarnain today, an individual in the Quran who most probably could be a space traveler, depending on your interpretations, of course. Zul Qarnain, maybe basically I should say this first. Zul Qarnain is a man who lived after Ibrahim, as you know, the famous character, all monotheistic religions accept. God blessed this man, Zul Qarnain, with certain powers and abilities. That's what the Quran says. And exegetes argue that this power and abilities indicates some special knowledge, some form of technology, as in the Quran, working with iron, because they say the Quran says that Zul Qarnain worked with iron. Usually when the Quran mentions working with iron, it usually refers to technology. And Zul Qarnain is interpreted as the term Zul Qarnain with possessor of two horns, or the possessor of two dimensions or two different periods of time. It's very interesting, two different periods of time. And when we look at the Zul Qarnain, the character Zul Qarnain, in the biblical version, he is considered to be Cyrus of Persia. This is in mainly Jewish tradition, who lived 500 years before Jesus and was the liberator of Jews from Babylon, where they were captive. So for the Jews, he's a Persian king. There are even some people who suggest that he might have been Alexander the Great of Macedonia, who actually wore, a helmet with two horns. So they try to interpret him as that. And some argue that, Zul Qarnain built the Great Wall of China. But I can tell you that all of these things do not match the Quranic version, because Islamic sources indicate that he lived, as I said, sometime after Abraham, and this is at least 4,000 years ago. He was either a prophet or a man with profound knowledge, as we mentioned, knowledge of technology, who was blessed with, certain discoveries, or who was blessed with certain technology that even we are yet to discover. This is very interesting. So his story in the Quran is quite unique. As you mentioned at the beginning, he has these interesting journeys which the Quran mentions, and I can sort of maybe explain these journeys from the Quran, directly from the Quran, if you like. Yeah. And in chapter Kaf 85, the Quran says, so he commenced a journey on a specific course until he reached the setting point of the sun, which appeared to him to be settling in a dark, murky liquid, where he found some people. It's now, when I analyze this verse, interesting things come up here, because on Earth there is no such a point where the sun sets. The sun sets all around the Earth. You cannot pinpoint a region of the Earth and say the sun sets here. So what I think is, why does the Quran mention this, where the sun sets, the term? And I believe that it is the solar apex. The solar apex in astronomical terms is in the constellation of Hercules. It is in the southwest region of Vega, a region called Omicron, Hercules. A star, Vega, maybe a star at a distance of 330 light years away. It's quite a distance when you think about it. And the Quran says that perhaps he saw the sun, or we could define this as a star, because our sun is a star as well, sinking in this into this dark, murky liquid. This is very interesting too. In this constellation, it's happening, and I think this is nothing but a black hole.
Black hole.
Because that's the way it's described, dark, murky. And I think that he saw a star sinking into or swallowed by a black hole. And as I said, when I analyze these verses, I come to a conclusion that Zul Qarnain was actually a space traveler. He probably traveled all the way to the constellation of Hercules, and this is where our solar system sort of heading towards. And some sources indicate that he was given control over certain things like light, energy. And this indicates that he had the technology to travel at speed perhaps close to that of velocity of light. He may have even used some wormholes to travel to these locations. We do not know. But the Quran says he found some nation there. This is very interesting. So I believe this could be a nation of extraterrestrial species. It is possible.
Was about to face their doomsday because their planet was about to be buried in that black hole. So God sends Zul Qarnain to decide what to do with this extraterrestrial beings there, whether to protect them or whether to decide whatever he wants, I guess.
Yes. Look, at the end of the day, when we interpret these verses, when we look at the classical interpretations, usually they describe these travels, happening on Earth, but it just doesn't suit, what the verse is talking about. As we talked about with you, about a hadith that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, says that, at a distance of 500 years away from you, there are planets like yours, like Earth. Now, we know that there is no such a thing as 500-year distance on Earth. Even with walking distance, you can walk around the Earth in about a year. So 500 years to me indicates like 500 light years. And recently we have discovered actually a planet around the Kepler system. It's called Kepler 186f, and it's like a Goldilocks planet. It resembles Earth so much. And scientists are now wondering, could life be present on this planet? So when you match this with the Zul Qarnain story, it is quite, possible that Zul Qarnain is a space traveler, and God gave him this ability, and he traveled to these distances. But the second part of his journey, I thought is much more interesting.
Before starting the second part, sir, so why God mentions about the Zul Qarnain? So I think the Jews come to Prophet Muhammad and they want to understand whether Prophet Muhammad is a real prophet or not, and that's they are actually testing him, and they are asking. The verse starts. They ask you about Zul Qarnain. But God doesn't tell anything who Zul Qarnain was, but He only mentions about his journeys, and He says that I gave him a reason. So, sir, first, in the Judaic tradition, we have a prophet called Hanok or Enoch. So it is also considered that Enoch might have had some space travels. There are several sources about that. Idris in our language. So maybe the Jewish rabbis wanted to check Prophet Muhammad are really being inspired by the same God, because it would be, a testing point, I guess. Do you understand? The second, for example, the word sebeb, I gave him a sebeb, he says in the Quran. So how do you interpret the word sebeb, sir? And do you think that the Jews were trying to test Prophet Muhammad about this? Two questions.
Yes, they did ask him about Zul Qarnain, because they had Zul Qarnain, in their own books too, in their own sources too. They want to confirm if he knew about him. And of course, the Prophet answered them with the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, the Quran directly explains his journey.
Mm-hmm.
And giving him a reason could mean giving him an ability or means, you know, some sort of technology
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
go on these
Right.
journeys.
Mm-hmm.
There were a number of questions asked to Prophet Muhammad, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, Jewish rabbis suggested this, and one of them was about the spirit too, soul as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he answered them all with the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to Zul Qarnain, however, there's something unique going on there. And it's quite difficult to explain the Zul Qarnain story, you know, if we limit these travels to Earth. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we can explain it because,
Mm-hmm.
as we will mention soon, that, you know, when he builds this barrier in the second
Mm-hmm.
part of this
Mm-hmm.
verse, we do not come across such barrier on Earth, you know, an iron
Mm-hmm.
barrier. There is no such a place on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And you will see that, you know, the term with these species, unknown species, Ya'juj, Ma'juj,
Mm-hmm.
we will, you know, have a look at some hadiths supporting it as
Right.
well, and
Mm-hmm.
they are quite amazing.
Then, sir,
Like,
then if you want, you can start the second journey of Zulkarnain mentioned in Quran, if you want to.
okay, so
Mm-hmm.
again in the same chapter, which is Surah Kehf 88, the Quran says, then he traveled a different course.
Mm-hmm.
So first he traveled where the sun was setting, to the setting point. No? Now he's traveling the opposite direction. And here his journey gets even more interesting. The Quran continues by saying that he traveled until he reached the rising point of the sun. He found on that place where he
Mm-hmm.
went a nation
Mm-hmm.
for whom he had provided no shelter from the sun. This is
Mm-hmm.
very interesting, from their sun.
How do
And
you
I
interpret
imagine,
this, sir? So there is no
yes,
night there.
yeah, there is no nights, or I do not know. Maybe there could be nights, but in a way that, you know, people who live there, or these species who live there,
Mm-hmm.
maybe during the day, because there is no shelter, it could be their star is closer to their planet or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Or
Maybe they seek refuge under the ground. This is a
mm-hmm.
possible thing too. Again, for me, the rising point of the sun here, mentioned in the Quran, is the solar antipax,
Mm-hmm.
the point on which celestial sphere away from which the solar system is moving. So it lies in the constellation of Columba, about 263 light years away from our Earth, our solar system. And a nation of species that live on one of these planets there,
Mm-hmm.
in this region of space, had no shelter from their star. That's what I understood
Mm-hmm.
from this
Mm-hmm.
verse. This could mean that their planet is quite hot,
Mm-hmm.
as it may be, as I mentioned, closer to its host star than the Earth to the sun. These species that live on this exoplanet could be living under the ground during the day, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe their planet does not have a satellite also, like the
Mm-hmm.
moon. This is a possibility too. And they need to be protected from the sun. I think this is what I gathered from this verse.
Mm-hmm.
And the Quran says, this is very interesting, that these species spoke an unfamiliar language. There is
Mm-hmm.
another thing here. So it is not really earthly language, unfamiliar language. They asked Zulkarnain to protect them from two species called Gog and Magog. This is the way they are mentioned in the
Right.
Bible, Gog
They're
and
like
Magog.
they are like colonizers.
Yeah, they are very similar to colonizers. And this is again in the same chapter, verse 94. And I do find this amazing because as Gog and Magog are mentioned in the Torah, in the Bible, and in the Quran. So it's established that these species exist. Who are they? Of course, people have different interpretations. But in the Quran, they are also a sign this is another interesting thing, that the doomsday is approaching, the appearance of Gog and Magog. So we can say that it is reported that they will be brought to earth again. Maybe I will talk about this a little later.
Yes.
So from my perspective, my interpretation of this is, God knows best, of course, that Gog and Magog are not humans. They are a species of, like you said, colonizers. The Quran says that Zul Qarnain used the knowledge that God blessed him with. As I mentioned before, this knowledge was probably an advanced technology. He built a barrier, very advanced technology, this barrier, between these species who were asking his help and Gog and Magog. And it's interesting that the Quran uses the term, he used iron to build this barrier.
Iron.
Yes, he used
only
iron
or something else too? Just
Look,
iron?
well, there was copper as well. I
Right.
think that the Quran mentions copper as well. But my understanding is some sort of metallic elements. And as I said, there is no such a barrier on Earth. However, what I can gather from this is this using the term iron and copper, these metallic elements, for a person who lived 4,000 years ago, this is technology, and it could be some sort of a magnetic barrier.
Wow.
Built from maybe iron elements and copper elements or metallic elements. Maybe this is what is indicating. And as I said, in the biblical version, this is referred to as the gates of Cyrus. Gates of Cyrus. That's what they mention it as.
It might be related to, it might be related to a kind of atmosphere engineering as well. So he might have engineered a kind of an atmospheric barrier. We don't know how he might have done it, but it is also possible that he might have done such.
Yes, this could be something magnetic, as I said. Using metal, he built a magnetic barrier.
So he protected this nation from
the other nation, yes,
and enemy species.
Yes. This is what the story says. This is what the Quran says. And I personally believe that this was not like I said, a solid barrier, like made up of steel, but a magnetic field, maybe made up of magnetic metallic elements. So the Quran continues this verse, in this chapter with his story, and it says, on that day, we will let them surge like waves over one another. This is again in Surah Kaf 99, which means that these species of Gog and Magog one day will overcome this barrier. They will find a way to, pass through this barrier. And this is when they will break through the barrier and travel to Earth. This is my view. According to hadiths,
but there is also another verse which actually says that when they attack the humans, the humans will say that we were unaware of this. So do you remember this verse, sir? I remember that there was a verse in Quran which actually mentions how they attacked the people as well.
It's in Surah Anbiya, chapter Anbiya in the Quran 96, and it says that till when Yajuj and Majuj, who are Gog and Magog, will overcome the barrier, and they will attack the earth, and they will come down from the top, above. That's what the word says.
From above.
From the top, from above. Yes. And very interesting that in the following verse 97 it says that those who did not believe, when they see this scene, they will say, we weren't aware of this. And it will be like it's too late for us now. It sounds like that we weren't aware of this.
Can you repeat that again, sir? So It was so interesting.
Those who do not believe, they will say that, well, to us, we weren't aware of this. Whereas the Quran clearly mentions it. The signs are already there. But going back to maybe Zul Qarnain's incident, as I said, when he reaches the other side, when he heads towards the east, solar antipax, he meets these people and he builds a barrier there to protect the other people, and he returns to earth, most probably. And the Quran says, but there will come a day when they will break through this barrier. And as we mentioned in Surah 90, verse 96 of Surah Anbiya, the Quran says, until after Gog and Magog have broken loose from their barrier. So they will swarm down from every height, that's the term, down to earth. They will be coming down to earth. So it's obvious that they are coming from somewhere else. So in this regard, I truly believe that, Juj are not from this world, and they are species that will travel to earth. This is what I understand. And there is a very powerful hadith of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon to support this. And this is quite interesting, Aydan Bey. The hadith, it says, where the Prophet Muhammad says, God will send them to earth. Now, this is how the hadith begins. Very clear. God will send them to earth, which means that they are not from earth. It's very clear.
Right.
They will drink all the water they find. Hadith continues.
So are you saying that this hadith tells that these beings, whatever they are interested in our waters?
Yes, that's what it sounds like. Because within this hadith, it's a very long hadith in Muslim, it says that they will consume the water of Lake Tiberias. This is believed to be the Sea of Galilee. So within a very short period of time, according to the hadith. So it sounds like these species are after water, like as you mentioned.
I have a very interesting video to show. There is an incident which occurred in Chile in 1996. And several investigators went to Chile to investigate UFO incident there, and they interviewed the mayor of this town, and the mayor of this town says that he saw a flying saucer, a spacecraft just above the lake. He and many other people in this region saw this spacecraft, UFO, and what at the end happened was that this lake, it was a lake, and this spacecraft had actually taken the water, almost some 20 centimeters of this lake was stolen, gone in a few seconds. And many other scientists also noticed that incident. So let me show this video in a few seconds.
Isn't it? Maybe. I do not know. As I said, Aydan Bey, unless I have solid proof, I can't. I will remain as a skeptic.
But there are many incidents similar to the one in Chile, and mentioned in hadith. They might be correlating. We don't know, but it is I think for to mention that.
Like if they have sent some scouts, before the invasion party comes, like the Quran says, Allahu Alam, it's possible. We don't know. It is possible. It is possible though. Like the hadith continues by saying the people will fortify themselves against them in their shelters and mountains. In fact, in the hadith, it's mentioned that when Jesus Christ returns, as you know, in Islamic theology, Jesus will return to earth. The hadith says that Jesus will help people, believers, move on to the mountains to protect them from these species. They will attack the humans with their weapons. This is what the prophet is saying. And then one of them will say, I find this quite interesting too, we have defeated the people of the earth. It's very interesting. We have defeated the people of the earth. Then who are they? Where are they coming from?
Wow.
The question pops up there.
So they are not from this earth, obviously.
Yes. And the hadith continues and it says, and dominated the people of the heavens. So they have some control over the heavens too. That's very interesting.
Can you repeat it again?
So the hadith says, we have defeated the people of the earth and dominated the people of the heavens.
Wow.
Which means they have colonized other planets too. Maybe that could be it. Also in the Sunan Ibn Majah, as you know, one of the books of Kutubi Sitta, reliable sources of Islam, hadith, the Prophet includes that they will attack humans and drink their water wherever they find it. And when the last group comes down, the Prophet says, they will say, there was once a lot of water here. And this is in Sahih Muslim. There are also reports in Sahih Bukhari, Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah, and all of these hadiths are mentioned under Hadithul Fitan. And very interesting, again in one hadith, the Prophet says one of them will say water must be abundant on this planet, on earth. So it seems to me like these extraterrestrial species are looking for a planet that has water to survive. The Prophet then continues, humans who seek refuge in mountains will pray to their Lord. They will start praying. And they will say, help us, save us, O Lord, from these species. And eventually their prayers will be accepted, as the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, says, God will send tiny worm-like creatures in the napes of their necks, and these creatures will kill them eventually. Another very interesting hadith.
Kind of bacteria, a kind of virus?
Yes, that's what I gathered from it. I believe that these tiny worms that the Prophet mentions are some sort of bacteria and viruses. And I believe that these species, who are Gog and Magog, are not immune to pathogens like we are on Earth, because we are always exposed to these pathogens and microbes and bacteria on Earth. But these species probably don't have them on their own planets. And when they are exposed to them, these viruses will start killing them. And the hadith continues or concludes with this. The Prophet says, there will be hundreds and thousands of dead carcasses of Gog and Magog on the surface of the earth. God will then send a very large species of birds whose necks are bent like an ostrich's neck, and they will collect the carcasses of Gog and Magog, cleaning the earth's surface from them. Even more interesting. So, you know, we are not aware of such species on Earth who are, you know, very large with bent necks, you know, and this could be some sort of vessels as well, sent by God. They could be operated by angels. I do not know, you know, but I am interpreting these things, you know, the way that we understand today, because it makes more sense to us today. Maybe in you know, in the classical era, 1,000 years ago, people interpret these things differently. But you can see it's quite evident, you know, from the Quran and the Hadith that Gog and Magog are not of this earth. It's quite evident there.
And according to the Hadith and Quran, we understand that they will attack to earth one day. They will try to consume our water. They are interested in our water.
Yes, and this is a sign of Qiyamah. This is a sign of doomsday, and they are invaders. They are invaders.
I mean, in the American ethologists, sir, what I understand, what I see is that there there is there are different aspects, there are different perspectives. Some believe that, these flying saucers, these UFOs, whatever they are very friendly. They are angelic beings, and they want to help people, humankind. They want to provide 0 point energy to replace our fuel-based energies, which actually destroys the earth. This is correct. But on the other hand, they refuse the idea that there might be some, harmful, UFOs or aliens out there. They believe that, for example, Dr. Gear is, making these kind of statements. He says that they are like angels, they don't want to harm us. But on the other hand, there are some scientists and some people from the intelligence community. They are saying that it might be very dangerous for us, and because we cannot control them, we cannot know how they are operating their vessels. So they say that they might be harmful to us. So they want to find ways to protect the earth. So
I think
yes,
I think there are both possibilities.
You are saying, sir, by looking at the Quran, by looking at that Surah of Kahf and some supporting hadiths, there are some alien beings which are stated by the Prophet and the Quran that they will one day attack the world and try to consume our supplies and our water.
Unfriendlies. They're not friendly. That's the way the Quran describes them. They are unfriendly.
But I'm sure, sir, I'm 100% sure you are the first one who actually make this analysis in English. I had a friend of mine in Turkey. He was a great scholar. He just passed away 3 years ago. He wrote a book about this topic, Zul Qarnain, and his journeys in the universe, in the space, Iskandar Ture. But I'm 100% sure that you are the first one who makes this analysis in English with your own interpretation. And if you don't have anything to answer, I would like to thank you for this wonderful.
Maybe last word. Maybe a last word. When we interpret these verses, as I said, our interpretations are a little bit different to the classical interpretations. But I can assure you that these interpretations are not a deviation from what the Quranic message is. It's very clear, because terms like bringing them down, they will come to earth. They are very clear that they are not from here. And as I said, they say, we have defeated the people of the earth. All of these terms gives me a very clear understanding that they are not of this earth. And as I mentioned before too, God creating this, universe, which we believe to have about 2 trillion galaxies in it, without a purpose is quite illogical from an Islamic perspective as well. That would be an awful waste of space. Why did God create all this space? He must have also created different beings who are not just spiritual or like the angels, but also organic beings as well. I truly believe this as well. And there are other verses in the Quran that support this. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. So we can limit our conversation with Zul Qarnain, Yejuj Mejuj, and their connection to the aliens, extraterrestrials today, and we can go on discussing these issues as well in our upcoming programs. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, sir.